back to another edition of the Night Report podcast. I'm your host, Mike Broadbent. Joining me once again is my co-host, Richie Schneiderite, and co-host, Rutgers beat writer, Craig Epstein. Guys, there's that Bill Belichick, good day for Rutgers meme that goes around when good things happen for Rutgers. This weekend was the opposite of that. Rutgers basketball got blown out by Illinois yesterday. Rutgers wrestling had what was set up to be a flag planting moment against Michigan that they totally gave away. We have some Rutgers coaching stuff we want to discuss, but let's start it off with basketball. Rutgers went to Champaign yesterday and lost 86-63. This is a game that I don't think really anybody thought they were going to win, but they showed fight. There were moments where it got down to even a 4-point lead in the second half for Illinois, and then Rutgers just didn't really have the horses to keep up that momentum. Let's just talk about the game. Rich, what was your macro level take about how this game went for Rutgers?
Ooh, macro. That's it was ugly. They don't play offense. They don't run an offense. They can't put the ball through the hoop. Like, it doesn't. You could be 2 feet from the rim and they're struggling to put the ball through the hoop. It's the same storyline over and over again. Decent defense. I even say above average defense at times. Guys are just not able to get the ball through the hoop. Like, they're struggling. Like, what was the assist count? Like, they had no, I'm looking at the wrong one. They had 8 assists on the day. Like, it's just it seems like it's almost selfish basketball too. Like, it's just ugly basketball. 6 of 15 on layups. The lone guy, and Craig said it before, like at halftime, that had a 3-point shot, a made 3-point shot was Cliff. Like, it was just such an ugly game. They did actually manage to come back in the second half a little bit, but like, it's not even like a tale of two halves anymore. They're just the same half over and over again. They're suck at free throws. They can't hit a 3 for the life of them. No one on this team can hit a 3, which is amazing as a D1 college basketball player, that most of these guys just can't hit an open 3, mind you. 37% from the field. It's just brutal. Like, and it's not like it got any better in the second half. It was 37% again. So it's just a ugly basketball team this year. And it's just, I guess it's kind of dampening the mood a little bit for next year, because everyone thought this team could get maybe an NIT or maybe an NCAA tournament bid, but it's just not looking that way right now.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, this was kind of expected. This just feels like a matchup where Rutgers could play Illinois. This Rutgers team could play this Illinois team 10 times, and Illinois would probably win all 10 of them. They're just bigger, stronger, faster. Just every facet of the game, they're just better than Rutgers. I mean, you just saw it you saw it in the first matchup. It was almost a carbon copy of the matchups. They just completely outmuscled them on the glass, especially on the offensive rebounds. It's just over and over again. And it's just, you look at it and you want to say, like, man, if Rutgers just tried harder, but it's just like they're just not on their level. And that's really just what the game comes down to. And Rutgers just does not have, like you said, the shooting to be able to keep up with it. Because even if Rutgers is getting out rebounded and it results in those 2 points, like if Rutgers can just hit threes, they'd be able to stay in the game. But they just really have nobody that can just consistently hit threes in this game. And really, it was just the offense yesterday was just basically just Cliff Amore. I mean, he accounted for basically half of their points in the first half. And outside of really that quick run they had where Noah gave them those 8 points, they went on a run, cut it to a 4-point game. You thought maybe that was something, but then Illinois quickly just fires back with a run of their own, and the game was over. And it's just like, this is just like we said, like we talked about whether or not last game was an aberration or if Rutgers was that team going forward, but this is just kind of who they are. Last game kind of showed everything needs to basically break perfectly for them just to even hopefully have a chance to win the game. And just that's not going to happen every game, especially against when you're facing a team as good as Illinois. Now you're going up against a team like Purdue, who is as good, if not better. So it's a tough time right now for them.
Yeah,
as good if not better.
What'd you say?
As good if not better. They're a lot better.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
number 2 team in the country.
Yeah,
yeah. I think you pointed out something that was very obvious throughout the whole game. This was just a team that athletically was just faster, bigger, longer than Rutgers. I'm just going to go through the height of each one of their players that played more than 6 minutes yesterday. 6'8", 6'6", 6'6", 6'9", 6'6", 6'10", 6'4". The only guy under 6'6" of their main rotation is Justin Harmon, and he's one of the best scorers on their team. So this is a team that is just way bigger than Rutgers. Rutgers usually is a team that values size, and I think you would have seen them have a much bigger lineup if things would have broken the way that they hoped this offseason. We can talk more about that later. But when you have, the whole goal of this season was to play faster, to score more in transition, to have more shots put up. And for the most part, that hasn't really been successful for this Rutgers team. Like you mentioned, there have been these short bursts where Rutgers has, seemingly a more efficient and, advanced offense. But for the large part, we're just not really a cohesive offense, period. Like I posted an article about Purdue has an offensive coordinator now for basketball, and they're one of the more progressive basketball teams in the country year after year. I think Rutgers really has to think seriously about doing something like that this offseason, because you just need a voice in the room to kind of like guide the offense, because there really is nothing that we can point to that we run this set in these situations, and it's an easy button for this team. There is no easy button. It's just kind of like, hoping to get an open look through a missed assignment or something like that. Like just from this game alone, we had a 6-minute stretch to start the game where we only scored 2 points from the 19-minute mark to the 13-minute mark. We only had 11 points to the first 13 minutes of the game. We out of the second half, we scored a quick bucket, and then we had a 3-minute stretch where we had no points, and you saw the lead climb to 15. After that Noah Fernandes, lightning strike where we got within 4, we got outscored 31-12 in the final 10-20 of the game. And if you just look at the advanced box score, like if you look at how Illinois was scoring versus how Rutgers was scoring, Illinois was 24 of 27 at the rim yesterday. They only took 9 mid-range shots in the entire game. Rutgers took 36 mid-range shots, which are widely lauded as the least efficient type of shot you should take in basketball. And that's the primary way we're putting up shots game after game. So we're terrible with shot selection. We're terrible at shot making. If you look at Rutgers, we were 10 of 19 at the rim, which is probably the first game in the last 10 where Rutgers has been over 50% at the rim. So we can't make shots at the rim. We're taking way too many mid-range shots. We can't hit three-pointers, partially because we're not getting open looks, but also partially because we're just not good at it. And, we're hit or miss on free throws. Yesterday we were good, but we only got to the line 11 times. Illinois got to the line 27 times. So that's what happens also when you go to the rim as much. You're more likely to get fouled in the paint than you are from mid-range or from beyond the arc. So it's a cacophony of just bad offense in general. Like any metric you look at, Rutgers looks bad. I don't know how to fix it. I'm not an offensive savant, but I know that they probably should just hire somebody who is and figure that out, because you can't be running this type of offense with Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper next year. You just can't. It's just you can't just expect them also to do the AAU thing and just play iso ball and 1-on-1 and have Ace and Dylan go back and forth, your turn, my turn stuff, because that's going to frustrate everybody. You really need to play team offensive basketball, and I really don't have a good solution. And Peichel is in year 7 now. Have we ever had an offense where you're like, oh my God, this is like poetry in motion? No, we've never had that. It's always been tough defense, forcing turnovers, getting opportunistic shots. There hasn't ever been consistent sets we go to get guys open. We just have had individual players who are good scorers at different times, in Cam Spencer, in Ron Harper Jr. and in Gio Baker. Like those guys could hit a shot when you needed them to. We don't have anybody on this team right now who is a go-to shot maker, and it shows because nobody seems to really have the confidence to just kind of like the full confidence to just take a shot when to get the offense back rolling. Like there are guys who take these like hesitant shots, and you see occasionally a guy like Noah Fernandes come in and like be that alpha dog. And I do want to shout out Cliff too, because you guys both said it. Cliff had his best 2 games of the season, probably his last 2. He's finally starting to show some touch in the paint. He went 6 of 7 at the rim yesterday, which is way better than he normally is. So you got to keep unfortunately, you got to keep playing through Cliff a little bit because that's probably our best offensive player, even though he hasn't been great all year. But I am struggling to find a path where this team, comes out of its cocoon this year because it's just been a lot of really bad basketball.
Yeah. The crazy thing is like, and I know I said it before, it's most likely not a tournament team, but based on their quad record and based on the field right now, one quick run and it totally changes the tune of this team. Now, I don't think that happens. I think that they're still going to struggle. I think Sunday could be potentially very, very ugly because you are going against a very tough Purdue team, but you do have a nice little streak of like bottom of the barrel Big Ten teams coming up in Penn State, Michigan, and Maryland. Then you go back to Wisconsin. Wisconsin comes to Rutgers, but who's a tough one. And then you get Northwestern Minnesota. So, I mean, realistically, those could be some decent wins, but you gotta, if you want to have any shot of making this tournament, you need to upset someone, at least one person, if not a couple people. You need some quad one wins, but like the quad record, all their losses are Q1s. Like it's not insane.
Yeah, we were talking about that. It's interesting how this almost feels like the reverse of last season, where at this time last season, I think we were saying like, there's no way they can miss the tournament. Like they'd have to have some type of epic collapse, and then of course they did. So it's almost like this season, it's like there's no way they can make the tournament unless they go on some sort of epic run. And it's like, well, the way the field is right now, I mean, nobody's really has a really great resume right now. So if you could go on kind of an extended run of really great basketball, which I don't expect them to do. But if you do it, like it's possible. But I don't see it with this team.
Trying to do that reverse jinx type thing. I see it. I hear you. Might work.
Yeah, at this time last year, we were 13-6 and 5-3 in the Big Ten. We had just come off the Ohio State win in overtime. We just come off the win at Northwestern with that big shot from Spencer. We went on to win the next 3 or 4 games. Then obviously Matt gets hurt. But I did kind of want to talk about, what this team could have been. And this isn't trying to dig up old wounds, but I do think that this team had a different design coming into the season from Pikel than it ended up being. If you look at the players that we lost out on late in the process, from Benedongo, the high school recruit, Cam Spencer, obviously, who went to UConn, and Paul Mulcahy, who went to Washington. Like all 3 of those guys were written in pen, basically, that they're going to be on the roster next year.
Yeah,
we all know what Cam's doing. He's one of the leading scorers on the number 1 team in the country. Paul hasn't really played a ton in Washington, but I think Benedongo, is getting kind of slept on for what he's doing. If you look at what he's doing at Georgia Tech, he's really blossomed into an excellent player. He's scored in double digits each of his last 10 games for Georgia Tech. He shot, in the last 10 games alone, he shot 64 for 86, which is a 74% shooting clip. He's averaged 15.2 points per game and 9.5 rebounds per game. If we had an interior scoring threat like Benedongo, we'd be so much different of a team, because not only would that open up shots for Cliff, because they would have to respect there's a second big man on the team, but he's just like so efficient as a scorer. I don't think you could have expected that coming in, but seeing what he's doing at a high major level is stupid impressive for a guy who's a freshman. So I do think the offense would have looked totally different with those 3 on the team than it does. We replaced Benedongo, Cam Spencer, and Paul Mulcahy with Oscar Palmquist, Jeremiah Williams, who they knew wasn't going to play, and Austin Williams. Austin Williams has had his moments, but he is by no means the offensive player that Cam Spencer or Benedongo would have been. And even Paul probably would be a lot better in year 5 in the Pikel system than he is, playing in this weird role for Washington. So I do think I want to give Pike a little bit of slack here, because I think he had a much different design. He's trying to make do with what he's got, but it's hard to watch, man.
I guess to play devil's advocate a little bit here is that with Benedongo, like we said before, the last 2 games, the big men have just been pretty much, other than Cliff the last 2 games, the big men have been pretty much a disaster this season. So, I mean, who knows? Like, is it guaranteed that Benedongo would have been doing what he's doing at Georgia Tech? And then at the same time, we're looking at Gavin Griffiths, a guy who was really basically a 5-star recruit who was touted as this great shooter, and we expect him to be like a double-digit scorer, and he just looks completely lost out there. So I don't know really what's going on with the player development this season. If anything, guys kind of seem like they're taking a step backwards. So I was just like, I guess, I don't know. I think like you mentioned it before and we talked about it, where there's definitely excuses or reasons to be made why this team is kind of where we are. But at the same time, there's some problems here that have been persisting for a couple years now, like the offense being kind of outdated and just being bad. They've been a bad layup team for now a couple of years. They've been a bad free throw shooting team now for a couple of years. So there's been problems here that have persisted, but like we said, they've had guys like Gio and Ron and just different guys, Caleb being basically the best defensive player in the country, who have been able to just bail them out of their problems like that. But this season, they don't have those guys. So now we get to see, like, really what can you do when things don't go, according to plan. And as we know, in college basketball and college sports these days, with the transfer portal and everything going on, things rarely ever go as planned. So it's just like you really have to be on top of things. So it's just like you want to give them these excuses, which I understand, but at the same time, like things can't just stay status quo, in my opinion.
The backcourt scares me the most. It's just if you combine Jermichael Davis and Derek Simpson's percentage, it's like 60% from the field. It's really bad. They're not doing anything. They can't score. They're not even facilitating for the most part. Like it's a rough look, and I don't even know. I don't know how you fix it. Like you said, guys are regressing. Like you got to go out and get an offensive coordinator type mind, and I think Jay Young. I know not an offensive coordinator type mind, but you got to bring him in to help with the big man development. No, Cliff has regressed severely. Don't get me wrong; he's gotten better over the past 2 games. He had actually a really good game this week against a smallish center in Coleman Hawkins, who's going to be that's another kick in the balls a little bit because it was like this close to being Rutgers. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's just the development overall. It's all throughout. I shouldn't say just pick on the guards, but specifically the development overall has just been not there. There really isn't any.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about how we've won games in the past when we've been really humming, it's murder ball. You're just playing stifling defense. You have long athletes who Peichel has developed and molded. Like, how many guys on his like top teams were 3rd, 4th, 5th year guys? Like, you basically had to start over this season, and I think to expect there not to have been some hiccups along the way, and this has been more than hiccups, but from having to play a lot of guys who aren't familiar with the system. So those could be the 7th year Austin Williams, or it could be the 1st year Jermichael Davis. You don't have the same length that you normally had under Steve Peichel. If you look at, Jermichael Davis is under 6 feet tall. Derek Simpson is listed, I think, at 6'3", and I don't think he's that tall. You look at, Noah Fernandez, he's under 6 feet tall. Like, all these guards are undersized for the Big Ten. And, those passing lanes that we used to be able to clog up with the Caleb McConnells, the Ron Harper Jr.'s, Watt missed a lot last season, but he's like the prototype for Pike of length and athleticism. And we don't have many guys like Mawat Mag. We have Cliff and Mawat, basically. And you were talking about Gavin struggling. He's struggling primarily because Pike demands a lot of these guys on defense. And if you're not familiar with the system and you're a freshman, it's tough to learn how to play defense in this system. And that's, I think, primarily why Gavin's struggling, because, you go down on defense, you blow an assignment, the guy hits a 3, and then you're expected to have that confidence on the offensive end. And he's not seeing shots fall. So it's like, he probably feels like he can't do anything right now. And you just got to find ways to get him easy looks. We talked about this in the past. Just put him in the corner and design plays to suck in it, like drive to the hoop, suck in a defender, and kick it to him on the wing. Like, he needs to see shots go down, and he's not seeing that right now. And he took a shot where he like drove to the top of the key, and like he didn't even get his second hand to guide the ball. He just like shot it one-handed, and it was like a total brick. And he's a great shooter. We all know that. We've seen him in AU settings. We've seen him in high school. He is a great shooter, but when you don't have the confidence, it could take a great shooter to a below average shooter really quick.
Now, and on top of it, like, even if they're getting those foul calls, like driving to the rim against that defender, they're not hitting it free throws. So it's like, It's tough, and I think it's interesting to me because Peichel has, like you said, shifted his mentality when it comes to recruiting guards from those tall, lengthy guards to now going a lot smaller. Like even Nigel James, who's their top point guard recruit in the 2025 class, is what 5'11", 6 foot maybe on a good day. And it could work in the Big Ten. Don't get me wrong. Like Michigan's done it a couple times with like Eli Brooks, Xavier Simpson, and they made it work. But you have to have the right pieces around them too. Like they were kind of funneling Hunter Dickinson for the most part under at Michigan, but it's a different team. It's definitely intriguing to see how he's recruiting now. They are shifting toward that more fast paced offense, and I think it goes back to what we said earlier in the season. It's like what is it, square peg, round hole, and it's just like you don't have the right pieces currently. You're kind of just throwing whatever the hell you got out there. I mean, hey, here's Trolls. And just fuck it, go out there, just shoot a couple threes, see if it works. Nope, nothing. Oh shit. All right, next, Palmquist, go out there again. Try, I don't know, fucking do whatever you want to do. It's at the point where like, I think you just keep experimenting at this point. It's not a lost season for the most part, but it kind of is as well. I think you just keep switching the starting lineup until you can find a good core five. I think you obviously have a couple that are starters, like solidified starters in Cliff and Mawat and Hyatt, but the rest, I think you just keep rotating guys and see like, all right, Fernandez and Jamichael doesn't work. Fernandez Simpson doesn't work. Let's try Fernandez and Jamichael. No, we'll just keep trying new rotations. Put Austin in that rotation too, and maybe you find something. Maybe you get lucky, and then you just gotta hope Jeremiah Williams is like the next coming of whoever. You need someone like you just hope he can just do something when he is eventually eligible to play.
Yeah, I don't think there's any easy button stuff this season. I think it's just kind of, we got to have that growth year. We need to just see the younger guys develop a little bit in the second half of the season. Need to get hopefully Jeremiah Williams on the court, get some minutes under his belt, so he's not coming off 2 years of rust coming into next season. Mm-hmm. The schedule gets significantly easier after the Purdue game. I do want to throw that caveat out there. February is a much, much easier stretch of games for Rutgers than January has been. So I don't think the season's lost in that sense. Like, you got to just make the best of it. It might not be a postseason team, but that doesn't mean that we can't have, an upset or two. That doesn't mean we can't have a ton of really solid development. Mm-hmm. But I think maybe myself included, we had a little bit too high of expectations given how much turnover this program saw in a 1 year span when, the hallmark for Peichel-led teams are stability. Getting those guys to come back for their fifth, sixth season sometimes. Having those guys who intimately know the system. We just haven't had that recently. Like, they've always had these stalwarts throughout, when's the last time we haven't had a guy leading the team who is in their and I'm talking about multiple guys, like fourth, fifth, sixth season. It's, we have Cliff and we have Mawat now, but other than that, the cupboard's kind of dry in terms of experience with Peichel. So I think that's partially on us. We might have had a little bit too high of expectations for this team, and we should have been a little bit more realistic, but what are you going to do? Live and learn.
It's tough though. Like, even looking at those, and I know those European games, they're not like the best competition, but just looking at them, hearing about the scrimmages against St. John's and who else did they play? They played someone else that was significant. And it sounded like this team was pretty good. Mind you, it's Jeremiah Williams is playing in those scrimmages too. So I'm really I'm holding out hope that he's going to be decent for them. And I think honestly, he's probably their best guard the minute he steps on the court. And I don't think that's a stretch by any means because their backcourt's just struggling. It's not good. Like, they can't score, can't do anything. They have games. They're just so inconsistent. And it drives me nuts. Like we said it before. I don't know if we said it before, actually. I've said it to you guys before. Derek Simpson will go and drop, 14, 8, and 8. And then the next game, he's 3 of 15. And I'm like, this is just so inconsistent. It drives me up a wall a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I believe he only made 3 shots the last against Nebraska too.
Yeah.
I think he had a lot of points from the line.
Too.
Yeah, he was 3 of 13 shooting against Nebraska when he had 14, 8, and 8. And so, I mean, a lot of his scoring came from the line. He had, a nice 3 at one point, but he's struggled all year. His shooting percentage is one of the lowest in the of the high major teams. So
yeah,
you'd love to see some development over the second half from him. But
I should have used the Ohio State game specifically. He had 23, 8, and 2. He shot 56%. He hasn't hit 40% in any other game since November 18th.
Jeez.
And 40% is like that's the minimum bar, I would say.
Yep.
So I don't know. It's just this team is just not built. And like you said, just get the development of the young guys. Just throw them out there at this point. Fuck it. Jermichael Davis, go start. Gavin Griffiths. I know Craig alluded to this before we started recording, and it might cause him to get some bad habits. But at this point, I need him to get out of that slump. I can't have him slumping like that. Number 21 recruit in the country, and he's what? Or 1 of like 18 in his last shots or something like that.
Yeah, it's been rough for him. But we'll see. Hopefully things start to trend upwards in the second half of the year. But we have a week off between now and our next game against Purdue. When you have that much time off in the middle of a conference season, you really need to use it for development and getting guys healthy. So
yeah.
Rough. Should we mention? I would say, should we mention the Terrence Shannon Jr. situation? Because that was
I don't really want to. I don't want to talk about it. I thought it was pretty gross that they gave him a standing ovation, but that's about as much as I want to say regarding Terrence Shannon.
Just for reference, 4 of 28 over the last 7 games. 4 of 28 for Gavin Griffiths.
Yeah,
that's not good.
Yeah, you just got to see shots go down.
Yeah. And I mean, this is the same guy that dropped a 25 bomb in game 2, and everyone, woo!
I mean, I was sipping the Kool-Aid.
I was on the hype train. Yeah, I believed it. And then he drops 12 points against Georgetown. I'm like, oh shit, this is it. Man, wow, this is going to be the Gavin Griffith show, and just disappeared.
Yep.
So anyway,
all right, let's talk some more sad news. Rutgers wrestling. They had a couple of Big Ten matchups this weekend. They won their first one against Michigan State on Friday night, which put them at 3-0 for the first time ever in the Big Ten, riding high. Rutgers had a match on Sunday afternoon against Michigan, who was ranked 12th, 11th.
Everyone has different rankings. Drives me up.
Yeah, let's just go with 11th because that's what the Rutgers press release had. So Michigan was ranked 11th. Rutgers has never beaten Michigan. This is seen as a bit of a down year for Michigan wrestling. Mm-hmm. They were without 2 of their best wrestlers in Shane Griffiths and I forget the other guy's name. Rutgers just went on to just totally crap the bed. They had 5 matches on Sunday where it was ranked on ranked, and they lost all 5. They lost both matches that went to sudden victory. They ended up losing the match 23-10. This is a match that Rutgers could have easily won, but they just didn't step up. Guys are getting rode out. Michigan is one of the best teams in the nation in terms of riding guys out, seemingly, because everybody, like from the first match down, Rutgers just couldn't find a way to escape when they really needed to. I don't know if you guys watched any of this match, so if you didn't, then I can just keep talking about it. But
no, I watched a couple of I shouldn't even say a couple. I watched 2 matches, and then once they started losing, I was like, I'm done. See ya. It is ugly though. Like, Dean was so close to pulling off that upset. I guess it's an upset. I don't think D'Agostino is really great, but he's obviously ranked by some. The ranking system for wrestling sucks. There's like 7 of them, and it's like they just pick whoever has the highest that week, and it's like we're gonna go with that one this week. Like, no.
Yep.
That one was close. Shawver, kind of disappointing because I don't think Dylan Ragusin, I don't even know how to pronounce it, is that good. I actually watched him twice this week. Because I watched him on Friday against Penn State, and he pinned
Nagao from Penn State.
Yeah, Nagao's been struggling pretty badly for them,
but he's still a top 5 guy in the country.
Oh yeah, no, I mean it's weird. And then Mitch just got fucking completely upset.
Yeah,
it's a tough one. I don't know. This lineup's weird this year too. Jackson Turley got his win, so that's nice. Soldano's not been the same since last year, the year before, whatever it was.
Well, the problem with Soldano is like he wrestles this really unconventional kind of like drunken master style where he wrestles from his back a lot. So he's always putting himself in danger, And sometimes that turns into this like crazy reversal pin out of nowhere. But
Yeah.
most of the time, it results in him just losing these big matchups by bigger margins than you would expect.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like trying to tame like a wild horse. You're trying to like take all those things that make him who he is, but also refine him down to a style that could win more matches. And I just don't know at this point if that's going to be possible. I think they've kind of like given up on trying to tame him and just hope that, as he gets older and stronger, that, that style can translate to better results. But I mean, it just hasn't been there this year for him. And you got to just kind of, I don't know. I feel like you have two paths and you've already kind of chosen one with Saldano.
Yeah. And then Luke Geyer had a pretty good match against Cameron Amin, who literally bit a wrestler on Friday.
He's the Luis Suarez of Big Ten wrestling.
Yeah, pretty much. It's very odd. Like he had him in like a near chokehold against Penn State, and he just went like, and like who was it? Messenbrink for Penn State. What goes the ref? He's like, look, like he fucking hit me, like insane. Yari is good. Yari's always a good wrestler, but I just don't think he can break into that upper echelon. Like he's got some good wins, and they're top 25 wins, but it's just you saw it on Sunday. He can't really break into that upper echelon. Like Davison just kind of manhandled him a little bit.
Yep.
So it's tough because I thought this was a pretty good lineup for Rutgers this year, and doesn't get any easier.
Yeah, is this just a case of they just can't break through against these top teams? I saw now they're 0-9 against Michigan all time, and they're like 0 whatever, or 52-1 against the Big Five.
Yeah. I mean, the Big Ten is the best wrestling conference in the country by far. Like if you just look from 1 to 14, or I don't think every team has a wrestling program, but if you just look at all the teams in the Big Ten, every year, almost every team is ranked, like throughout the season. So 80% of the conference is ranked. If you look at the Big Ten championships for individuals, most of the time those rankings of how they place in the Big Ten championships is roughly how the national championship's going to go. It's really tough to win in the Big Ten, and this shouldn't really surprise that Rutgers loses these matches. But in a year where you've got this kind of dual lineup that should be better than it is, you really hope to get one of these big wins and kind of have a program defining moment. But they have a couple more opportunities. I don't think they're going to even come close to beating Penn State. Penn State's just a different level altogether. But you would hope that you could beat Ohio State or Minnesota with this lineup and having both of them at home. But we'll see if it actually works out. Yeah,
those should be near, if not sellouts.
Yeah.
Which reminded me, this has nothing to do with it, but they're winless against Michigan, and then I just remembered that they're 0-8 at the State Farm Center against Illinois. Aren't they like 0-8, or they're 0-8 at the Breslin Center for basketball? 0-8 at the Breslin Center against Michigan State, and they've never won at Ohio State. They're like also 0-7 or 0-8. They're like, I don't know, just very, very strange that throughout all these years they just can't get that one win.
Yeah, it's tough. Once you break through, though, you see it could make a hell of a difference. But I think it's in people's heads too a little bit.
Yeah.
I also think you got to remember when Rutgers came into the Big Ten, they were being coached by Eddie Jordan, there was a list recently that came out. It was like the worst 25 hires of the last 25 years, and Eddie Jordan was top 10, and I agree with that ranking. The first 2 to 3 years of Peichel, you got to write off because he was building something. So I think to judge Rutgers for not winning at X venue or Y venue, you really can only look at like the last 4 years or 4 or 5 years to kind of like compare that.
Can you argue?
So you'd like to see some wins there, but it hasn't happened.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Can you argue Peichel or Rutgers is on both lists if there's like a top 25 in the past 25 years? Yeah. I think you could argue Peichel's on that, and then Eddie Jordan's on another one. So I think it's interesting how that works.
Peichel, if he's not top 10, he should be on that hypothetical list.
I was thinking they could be on the list for football and basketball between Eddie Jordan and Chris Ash.
Oh yes, 100%, without a doubt. That man might be number one. I am so anti him. I can't say it enough. Like, you see the playoffs this week? You see that guy that scored a touchdown? Oh, that other guy that scored a touchdown that were on the same exact team? Yeah. Somehow got them to campus, mind you. How? I don't know.
Yeah, somehow he had Gus Edwards, who leads the Ravens in rushing touchdowns. He had Isaiah Pacheco, and he had Bo Melton at different points. And we just didn't have any competent offense around him.
Yeah, I mean, there was a guy that, mind you, he just got injured, but they also had the starting guard for the Detroit Lions.
Yep, Jonah Jackson. Yep,
Jonah Jackson. So I mean, it's like, dude, what the fuck did you do?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's why quarterback play is so important. We just haven't had that. And
you mean Johnny Langan being a quarterback doesn't work?
Yeah, apparently not.
I'm sorry to pick on him, but fuck that guy.
Yeah, Chris Ash.
You still blocked, Richie?
Yeah, dude, are you kidding me? You think he's just going to randomly unblock me? I still talk shit about him on Twitter. Like,
but speaking of football coaches, Richie, you got some a little bit of a scoop on possibly something going on with Rutgers assistant coaches.
Yeah, so actually, you know what? We haven't talked in a week, so we've got a couple scoops. Number one, they have started to interview defensive line coach candidates. I expect that hire to be done relatively soon. I don't have any specific names. I do like Colin Farrell a lot. Colin Farrell? Colin Farrell. Not the actor. Not the actor.
Damn. The guy who played the Penguin?
No, not him. Mike said the same thing to me when I texted him about it. I kind of hate you guys for both that. But he's the assistant head coach / D-line coach at Kent State, New Jersey native. Very good recruiter, considered a top 5 recruiter in the MAC. Has survived at Kent State since 2016, survived 2 coaching staffs because Sean Lewis ended up leaving. They had a totally new guy. Can't clear my throat. I'm dying right now. But yeah, no, he's one to keep a close eye on. And then I was also told recently a Power 5 school is trying to poach Mark Orfeh, not Orfee. We'll see what happens with that. I don't really think he's going to leave. I think Rutgers proved last time that they're willing to up him because Ole Miss reached out last year. There's some talk about Mississippi State early on in the offseason, but they filled their role with someone else. So I think Rutgers might just end up re-upping him, which wouldn't shock me. But, yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting. I mean, it's a good sign when other teams are trying to poach your coaches. Put it like that.
Yeah, it's not a bad sign at all. Something you want, honestly, because that's going to help you attract coaching candidates in the future. As much as it sucked to lose Heatherman, at least he's going to a DC job at the Power 5.
Yeah.
Have you heard anything regarding the linebacking coaching role?
No, there's some talk that they might just end up going internal with that. I don't know if that's a fact or not. I haven't been able to confirm that one yet. But I mean, if they do go internal, it's either Jarrett Kite, who is the interim D-line coach and has linebackers experience, or it'd be Charlie Noonan, who's already on the road recruiting, works with the linebackers at QC since 2020. Developed. Was at Lehigh the year before he came to Rutgers. He developed a second-team All-American at Lehigh. I think they're FCS or something like that. It's still impressive nonetheless. So I think, if anything, I'd probably lean more towards Noonan being the favorite there. But there is a lot of interest in both jobs, so now they're kind of just seeing who's going to show interest and kind of go from there. Do some interviews, all that good stuff.
Interesting. All right, so stay tuned to the boards and your podcast feed because we will have something as soon as that news breaks to fill you in on all the details. It's kind of all I got for today, guys. Do you have anything else you wanted to hit on before we head out?
Craig, you can go first if you want.
Football games, you say, were pretty good. I mean, the Bills, they lost. So I kind of feel bad a little bit because I know I'm a Jet fan, but I did feel bad a little bit. But at the same time, I mean, now the narrative all we heard yesterday was the narrative that Lamar Jackson can never win in the playoffs, but Josh Allen, same deal. I mean, where's that narrative? Every time he goes up against Mahomes, he loses.
It's tough. Mahomes is like an all-time quarterback.
I get it, but since I don't know how long it's been now, but like the last 6 years has been just Mahomes has at least made the AFC title game. Before that, Brady made it how many consecutive years. So basically, the AFC title game for like the last decade. plus has basically just been either Mahomes or Brady. It's crazy.
Yeah. Do you know all the players he's lost to in the playoffs, or all
Oh,
the quarterbacks he's lost to in the playoffs? Mahomes.
Mahomes?
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I can't really think of it.
So he's lost to Brady twice, once in the AFC Championship game, once in the Super Bowl, and he's lost to Joe Burrow. That's it. Those are his only losses in the playoffs. So losing to Mahomes isn't an indictment, in my opinion. It's just kind of like an inevitability for most guys. But yeah, Josh Allen, everything was set up for them to win that game. They finally got the home playoff game. That was Mahomes, believe it or not, his first playoff game that wasn't either in the Super Bowl or at Arrowhead Stadium.
Crazy.
Wild. But so Josh Allen, they got the lucky bounce on that fumble out of the end zone. They got the lucky bounce with the fumble that should have been. They somehow recovered that. It just seems like they're a team that's cursed. Like they're not going to find a way to beat Mahomes. Things aren't going to get any easier now because Josh Allen's cap number starts to really drastically increase next year. So the Bills, man, I do feel for him as well. But going against Mahomes, he's the best player in football for a reason. The guy just knows how to find a way to win.
Yeah, goes to show you how much a quarterback can change a team.
Yeah. As long as you have the best quarterback in the league, he can drag you to the AFC, to at least the conference championship.
Yeah. Last thing I got is recruiting news. Junior Day will be this weekend. They hosted a couple kids last Wednesday. Charlandon Strange being the top target among that group. He did end up making a Syracuse visit. I do still expect him to go to Syracuse. But Rutgers has a pretty good list growing for next Saturday. John Forster, 4-star Jersey running back. Jaden Savory coming from Michigan, who is a basketball teammate of Trey McKinney, who's top Rutgers basketball target. The two have actually talked about Rutgers. It's in one of our War Room article. I forget which one it is. Andrew Olish, a Pennsylvania tight end. Michael Troutman coming down from DePaul Catholic. I believe his teammate Desi Jones is also coming down. Another top 10 Jersey kid. It's going to be a lot of localish kids for the most part for this one. But they're also sneaking in some visitors during the week as well. January 30th, Rowan Byrne, who's arguably the top offensive line target in 2025 from Iona Prep, will be on campus. That's pretty much it. It's relatively quiet right now. But these are usually the times where we might sneak a commitment or two. So I definitely keep an eye out. I don't think anyone on that list currently is ready to commit yet. But they're doing really well with John Forster, who's like a top 250, top 150, number 134 overall in the country, running back. Kind of an all-purpose guy, almost like a slot back that could literally go play the slot or could play running back at the next level. So definitely keep a close eye on him. And that's pretty much it.
All right, guys. Well, thanks once again for listening. Thanks to everyone who's liked, subscribed, all that jazz over the past. Really appreciate each and every one of you. But for me and the guys, this has been another edition of the Night Report podcast. Signing off.